second. And I'll take your time. All right, you are ready to go.
Okay. When cars were developed to the point that they were by the 1920s or so, it was almost inevitable that hood ornaments would be something that would be added to them. Some people didn't want a modal meter, and they didn't see the practicality necessarily of it, and then just the regular cap was kind of plain, because a lot of people tend to just like ornaments. That's just their idea of something to ornament whether it was horses' harnesses or themselves or whatever. Not everybody would want that type of thing, but that just is one of the things that that developed. And the car manufacturers thought it was a good idea because that helped to recognize their car. And we were lucky this week, I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday, but there in the comic strips in the Minnesota Star Tribune was Snoopy and the hood ornament. And he did not want a hood ornament for his doghouse. And of course, Charles Schulz, you know, he has a few years on all of us. He has passed away now, but he may have been more familiar with hood ornaments than we are even. So this seemed to be a logical thing for him to come up with. But I thought, oh, this is like a gift from heaven when we saw this to open up with.
Okay.
You got a mic?
He's got a mic.
Yeah, I got a mic.
I thought so.
The automobile manufacturers like to have something to identify their car, and in Europe they had the radiator out front before they did in this country. Mercedes, 1904 Mercedes had a radiator and a hood in front, but around 1989 when they had the radiators in front, many of the companies developed hood ornaments or radiator ornaments. And later on, when the radiators were covered, then they developed hood ornaments. And so it's very interesting. And we have a small collection of them. We illustrated some here, we will. And some then I also went online and I indicated which ones. I have 4 or 5 that I couldn't find. They're packed away somewhere. And so, but you'll see what we have.
Here's a group of caps. On the left is a Packard cap from about 1928, and there'll be a picture of a Packard with a different hood ornament later on that you'll see.
I couldn't find it. I've had that trying donut chaser and the correct cap and the correct motor meter for years, and had it on display. But we did some remodeling a little bit in our recreational room, and I packed some away, and I couldn't find it. I got it somewhere. Next to it over there is a lock-in cap for the Model A with the original motor meter on it. So you'll just have to bear with me on some of these. Here you see is a Packard with an ornament. That's a 25 Packard sport model.
And you're wondering why this is here. Well, you can see as you look at the hood ornaments that we have here and the ones that are on the tables back there, that the Art Deco idea in automobile hood ornaments is very, very prevalent. And it just so happened that the Art Deco idea of decoration was developing at the same time that automobiles were. Notice the dogs and their sleek look. Well, you'll see radiator ornaments like that. And also the goddess, or whatever you might say, representing winter is very much like some of these too. But it just seemed to fit in, and the Art Deco ornaments really preceded the modernistic look that you had in the automobiles themselves. But I knew we had this magazine around, and I thought, oh, we got to include that because it just seemed to fit in so well with this geometric idea and the sleekness and all this sort of thing that you see here. And this is a 1934, I think it is.
31.
31, yeah. Woman's Home Companion magazine.
Okay. This is a 1927 Chevrolet, and it's a little cracked. I've had it for years, and it was the same year, of course, in 27 that Charlie Lindbergh flew the Atlantic, and so it's kind of a rare one. This one's cracked up a bit, and I have the complete cap, but I took it apart to find the new bolts to hold the thing together, and of course I haven't found the correct bolt yet. There's another view of it. You go to the next slide and you can see here, it's a Coda trophy. It's interesting, it was actually a Coda trophy, but the plane is actually the Spirit of St. Louis. And so I'm not sure, he went in this, the spring, May of 1927. And so this, if this was honoring that plane, it had to be a little later in the year. Does anybody have one? It's not common at all, but it's an interesting one.
Many things were made with the Spirit of St. Louis as the motif. There were things such as watch fobs and bookends and all sorts of things, because it just captured the imagination of the American people that he had done this, and it was quite the thing to use as a souvenir item, and items of that sort are quite collectible today, although prices of a lot of antique items have gone down, but they're still very interesting to see what has been done in that realm.
You go to the next one. This one we're not sure of. It's very similar to the Buick ones of the late 1920s. But I could not identify which model or which year. But it's an interesting cap, complete. And does anyone have one? Somebody's got one back there. Okay.
It's on the table.
On the table, okay.
On the table, you got one.
Essex.
It's the original?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Essex? Essex.
I haven't restored.
Essex.
I haven't, what? I haven't restored it. What?
That's a 29 Buick.
29 Buick?
A 3-bar bumper.
Yeah. 29 Buick, and the cap is original. I haven't restored any of them. Somebody can someday. Some of these are pot metal, and you got to be careful in working with them. The Chevrolet one would be real nice to if it could be restored.
And if you see any of these that we have not identified as we go along, raise your hand and let us know if you think you know what it might be, because some we just couldn't identify. There's no really good way of looking them up or anything. So you just kind of guess or just speculate.
You go on to the next one. This is a 1930 Chevrolet. It's a nice one. It has not been replated. It's original plate, and somebody's got one for sale. And of course, I don't think it's worth that. They want $1,200 for it, but it's an unusual. Does anybody have one? We got somebody back here that has one. Okay, it's an interesting one, and mine is. This is in good condition. It would clean up real nice, but it's kind of. It's interesting, around 1928, 29, 30, 31, there were some really nice caps and real nice ornaments. And Chevrolet, before it had the quail, and I didn't find I had a quail with off the cap I was going to take a photo of, but somewhere I got a 31 cap. And again, if you knew our collection, we put things away. I just don't have room for everything. And I know in my garage there's an area of shelving that I can't get to right now. And I know there's some more in there, but it's at least we got enough to show. You go on then. Here's a Cadillac one. And I've identified it in the past as from 1930. And it's a nice one. it's not pot metal, it's bronze underneath. And so it's an interesting one. They used similar ones for many years and adapted it into the model of the car. And so it's, again, somebody wanted real high money for it, but they are around. Does anybody have one of those? There's you. Yeah.
Over there?
Well,
Okay, yeah.
okay, because after we get through this, you go look at his. Okay. The 1950s Nash, and it had wings. Underneath of it, it sits on a pair of wings. And it was used around 1951, 52, Nash. And this one's in good condition, but I don't have, it sat on the others, and I don't think they were bolted together. I think they were bolted from this, and they held the others underneath. But does somebody have one of those? Yep.
Yep.
Why don't you just stand over here where it's easier to see you when you raise your hand?
I have one on my national as well.
Okay, this is on a cap. I do not know the source of it. It's a good condition. It's an interesting one, and I could not find out the ornament on it. Does anybody have something similar? You didn't raise your hand. Okay, it's mostly the aftermarket ones do not have a cap under it. And so this has a cap under it. And so I did not trace it. It's not a pot metal one, it's bronze underneath. And most of your aftermarket were pot metal. I have some 2 or 3 that were like the Lincoln dog or the Ford dog, but they were pot metal. And so I had just pieces of them. You can go on to the next one. We couldn't find the source of this either. The cap's a little damaged on the bottom. There are some similar ones that we found online, but here's Huber again.
It's on the table back here, Darel.
You got one like it?
It's a Buick.
What is it off of?
Buick.
What?
Buick.
Buick.
Ah.
This is a fairly good condition, but it's rough on the bottom. It could be restored, but the rest of it is good shape. So we'll call it another Buick.
This is a page from the Western Auto catalog from about that era, around 1930 or so. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
And so there are little descriptions of each one. This is the aftermarket ones that they had available, and it just occupied one little part of a page, and I'm surprised that they didn't spread it out more and try to feature it more. But one of the items that probably has some color to it, according to this, it says the Peacock, which was a Chevrolet type of decor, but they must have had little spots of color on the various parts of the tail in order to enhance it, to make it really look like a peacock, and that's down on your left, almost to the corner there. But in some of these, they did a couple of different sizes, so I suppose some of them would look better if they were on a smaller car, and some would look better if they were on a larger car. But just as some examples of some that they had a flying goose, which you don't see it there on that part. I don't think it's the same as the other one that we showed before, but Egyptian lady, warrior head, dog, greyhound, spirit of progress, acorn, diving girl in 2 sizes. You know, it says the dimensions, the sizes, but because these were ornaments, and you'd think that they were something that would be pretty special. Even in those days, you'd have thought the prices were a little higher. Can you imagine only paying 38 cents for an ornament?
So, LaVerna, my peacock that I have has no color on it, and it never did.
It never did, okay.
It never did. And my peacock, I actually found a catalog page just like the one that you had. I have it on my Model A Ford.
Oh, okay.
And actually, the reason why it's got a hole at the bottom is
Yeah.
that my motor meter fit on top of it. And now
Oh,
the motor meter is still usable and it goes through the peacock
oh,
and into the radiator cap.
oh,
And so I
great.
have that. Now, I have a peacock, but Mr. Butek always called it a turkey.
He wasn't talking about the hood ornament.
Oh, that was me?
Okay, here's an aftermarket, one for a lion. And, so just an example of one.
Anybody have one of those? Anybody seen one of, oh, back there,
He's got
Actually, a
one.
rare one there. And I think it's from Germany.
Germany, okay.
Graph and stiff. Graph and
Okay.
stiff. Graph
Hmm.
and stiff. I've got the books back here.
Oh. Okay, well, that could be,
Okay. The former caps are from our own collection, and the following illustrations, as you see and notice here, are from the internet. And so I researched some more, we'll see, and some of them I do that are there, I have something similar put away somewhere. But again, we'll talk about them when we come to it. Here's the Franklin cap, and I have a beautiful one, and we couldn't find it. But that was used when the Franklin then was air cooled, and they had a hood and a fake front on there as if it was a radiator, and they put this line and then on top so that they would have an ornament. And Hubert's got one back there.
I found mine, Darrell. It's on the table.
You found it, okay. It's interesting, there used to be near Darel, Minnesota was a junkyard, and in the 50s and early 60s, it was packed with stuff. Eventually, they had an auction. They had early tractors, steam tractors, gasoline tractors, parts. A friend of mine has a 1910 International, Bob Johnson, an air-cooled one, and he bought it there. And but I was out there one day, and there was a shelf, and I saw a little dark thing up above, and I reached up, and there was that Franklin cap. I probably paid $1 for it back then. And the thing is, I got along with the man that had it because I paid for everything. And he said that sometimes he would notice something missing that he hadn't sold. People would just kind of think it was free. But it was an interesting place. Eventually, it was, he passed away and the son moved some of it to another location, but the parts mostly were gone. Here's a Lincoln cap, and I like that. That's an original. No, I don't have that, of course. I had the car though in 1949. I was driving down Lindale Avenue, and there in a service station was a car just like that Lincoln there, parked. And I stopped and looked at it, and he wanted $75 for it. And I thought that wasn't bad at all. It was a KB, but it was a V8. But it was a beautiful automobile. I never did get the gasoline tank completely filled with gas. It was a big tank with a good extra tank, you know, when you had emergency tank to the side on it. But the Lincoln was well known for that emblem.
They also put it on the 34 Fords, because I have it on mine,
Yes.
on mine also. And
Yeah, they did.
But it's a little bit different than this.
I have part of one from a 35 Ford.
I have a whole
That
one
was a
except
nice
the
car,
end
the
of the tail.
35. The 36 was different, but the 36 had a more interesting front.
Yep.
And I had a 36 Ford in high school also with a slant back. It was a nice car.
What is nice about the 32 versus the 34 Ford, the 32 dog paws look a little more pronounced, and the 34 dog paws look like they're wearing baseball gloves.
That's interesting. I had two or three 32 Fords, the best one was a B400, and I sold it to Harris. Okay, this apparently has been represented as a Plymouth. Does anybody back that up?
Anybody recognize the emblem at all?
I don't know. It's an interesting cap.
Ken, you got one?
I think it is, I think you're right, and we can look it up.
You think it is?
It's in the book.
Let's take a look. Okay. Well, you got a book on them. You see, I don't have that book. And so it would show. But that's kind of interesting.
This
Oh
was,
yeah, this is, we don't know what that's from either. It's similar to the one I had earlier that I showed off. Somebody said was.
it's a little similar to some back there, but is it the same? Is it the same as one of those back there?
It's a Stutz.
It's that,
Yes.
Oh, a Stutz.
yeah, it does look like that. That's true.
It's the sun god Ra.
Sun God, okay.
Egyptian architect.
Okay. And here's the 53 Pontiac. And you can see there from the illustration that that is from it. And very interesting on the Pontiac automobile, of course, originally was the Oakland. And then they made both the Pontiac and the Oakland for a couple of years. The last Oakland was 31, the V8. And the first Pontiac was 26, and I have a nice 26 cap. And again, he's a broken one back here, but I didn't locate mine, so I had to use one on the line. The only Pontiac I had was a 1950 Chieftain convertible, and that was a nice car. Here's the Mercury of Canada. And the Mercury in Canada is really a Ford. And also they had a line of trucks also. And the trucks were called Mercury. But they were essentially a Ford truck with a Mercury name. And it's interesting that the Mercury there, you see, looks like a 42 front on a Ford. But that's an interesting one.
And so this one really, rather than the top of the hood, it's something that extends down
it went
over the whole hood.
And down the front of the hood. And this is from an emblem of ours, and that's the 1940 shark nose. And the shark nose Graham was interesting, and I've seen two. I saw original one once, but in about 1956, I was up near Anoka, just north of Anoka was a junkyard, and I went down and I found a brass radiator to bought, but next to it was sitting a shark nose Graham, and I often wonder what happened to it. There's just not that many around. Most of them that weren't existed were turned into street rods because of the look of them. Oh.
Rather unusual hood ornament there.
Okay, following now is a variety of photos, and I thought Bernie thought this hood ornament was interesting, so we thought we'd show it. Some of these are from postcards from our collection.
Some of these old postcards, you can find quite humorous things relating to cars, especially in the very early days, and some of them, of course, too, have these fake cars where people went into a studio and a group of 2 or 3 guys or 2 or 3 women sat down in the car, the so-called car, and had their pictures taken, and then they had several of those developed as postcards and sent them all out to their friends, because that was a novelty in those days, of course, and so it was kind of a fun thing to do.
That's a really unique hood ornament though.
Yeah, I just thought,
And this is interesting, that, that on a car, that's a Model T Ford turned into a racer, and then a little boy racing him on a little kiddie car. And I thought that was just kind of a nice corporation. So many of the Model Ts were turned into race cars, and there's a collection online of someone that has a huge collection of the original photos, and it's just interesting, all of the speedsters from very crude to very fine that were made of Model Ts. And the next one here, this one is a young boy on a kiddie car, and I put that in for a special reason. That was taken in May of 1934, and that's me. And you notice it's got a bandage up there, and if you look close, the scar is still there.
we have quite a few old actual photos on postcards, and then just some incidental old photos of old cars. And some of them, they show things quite clearly, and you can tell the make of car and all that, and some things not so great. But a lot of people who like old postcards, they'll look through and they'll look for pictures of old cars and all this sort of thing to just the nostalgia about that sort of thing, because there are quite a few of them around yet. In fact, we did an antique show the other day. Well, it was the advertising and stoneware one, and we brought a container full of old photo postcards, actual photos, and there were a few car ones in there, and that brought more attention than all the fancy stuff that people had. It seemed like they were looking through those and enjoying those. So you never know, it's the simple stuff like that that people seem to enjoy. And this one, I ran across this postcard a while ago, and it is at a fair in northern Wisconsin at Minong. And the year was that it was taken was either 1911 or 1912. And I looked fairly closely at it without putting it on the computer, and I told Darel, "Oh, that's a car down in front." He said, "That's not a car." You know, we couldn't see it that clearly. So then we were able to see it more clearly. And yes, it is a car, and it's a 1911 Ford. And notice that they had telephones up in that area. You know, we always think of, oh, going up there, that's so much more backward than around the Twin Cities. But that's about the same time that a lot of the rural areas around here got phones in the first place.
So relative to
Yeah, this picture is one of those picture postcards, and somewhere or another it got saved, and I had found it recently. And it was a cousin of my grandfather's that had this postcard, and he didn't send it at the time that this fair was taking place, because this is obviously summer or fall. He sent it at Christmas time, and that was his Christmas card. And he just mentioned, this is our community fair. And so it was just kind of a fun thing to be able to look at it a little more closely. Otherwise, I had not paid that much attention to it before. But you could find all kinds of postcards. You could make a slide presentation of just all kinds of things about old cars, just from postcards and old photos and all that. It's a fascinating thing. And you can study it, and you can see the flags and the people in their white outfits and all this sort of thing. You know, it's kind of fun to just examine it.
Okay. And that's it. And we hope you enjoyed it.
There's some information about what people refer to as the Flying Lady, which was used, and it really isn't called the Flying Lady, but it is what was used on the Rolls Royce, and there were 4 different versions of it. And I'll put the picture back there with the hood ornaments that are there. And then there's another small picture in the book too, and that tells a little bit about the person who designed the the hood ornament in the first place and how it was revised several times, but it was always used by Rolls-Royce. And it's, if we had used that, I'm sure somebody would have said, well, don't you know, this is supposed to be the most famous, hood ornament that there ever was. And we didn't even find it till last night, so that's why it didn't get included here. Because I was going through this book, it's a trivia quiz book, and they're a little bit on motivators and about the hood ornaments, and there it was. So I'll put that stuff out so you can see it in connection with
Gilbert also
that.
has an example back on his table there.
Came off my Rolls Royce.
Yeah. It
That's
tells who the
just-
sculptor was that they got to do this, and it really isn't called the Flying Lady because it's just her dress. So she's not really supposed to be like she's flying. It isn't like she has wings or that sort of thing. So you can see more of it back there in connection with his display too. So